Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Kiddushin Daf Chav Daled, and we're starting on the bottom line of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis. Yesterday, and really the day before, primarily on Chav Beis Amud Beis, there's a Mishnah a third of the way down. And in that Mishnah, we had a machlokes in regards to how an Eved Kenani gets his world back. How does he get to be free again? So we had said there, and that there's a machlokes between Rav Meir and the Chachamim. Rav Meir had said that he can be freed by kesef al yedei acherim, and the Chachamim say he could be freed even by kesef al yedei atzmo. And says the Gemara on the bottom of Chav Gimel Amud Beis that might not be so simple. V'rami de Rav Meir ad Rav Meir, v'rami de Rabbanon ad Rabbanon. It seems to be that the Rabbanon and Rav Meir of our Mishnah are soser themselves in another Mishnah. Says the Gemara de Tanya, turning to the top of Chav Daled Amud Aleph, Ein isha poda meiser sheni below chomesh, that a woman cannot be poda meiser sheni. She cannot redeem meiser sheni without adding a fifth, which is the typical din, that when a person does transfer the kedusha of meiser sheni onto a coin, they do have to add a chomesh. So here it says that she's not allowed to do it without a chomesh. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishum Reb Meir. Let's remember that Reb Meir is shita number 2. Isha is in fact poda meiser sheni below chomesh. So the Gemara, what's the details here? Like, what's the actual case scenario? We need some construct to work from. So on Chav Daled Amud Aleph, 3 lines down, the Gemara says, Hey chidami, Ilema, if you want to say that our Mishnah is discussing a case, bezuze de Baal, umaiser de Baal, that the money that we're talking about belongs to the husband, and the food that we're talking about belongs to the husband, then if the woman is the subject of our Mishnah, the one who's doing the transaction, then shlichusa de Baal ka'abda, she's nothing more than a shliach. Whatever the rules of the husband are, she'd have to do. Of course, she's going to add a chomesh. If I'm a man and I'm going to take my sheni and I'm going to transfer it onto a coin, I have to add a chomesh. My wife is doing it for me. You have to add a chomesh. If it's my money, my product, and she's just doing the dirty work, okay, pasha that we're going to add a chomesh. So says the Gemara, Be'ela, if you want to say perhaps bezuze dida, if it's her money, umaiser dida, and his meiser, so she's the one spending the money. Says the Gemara, Ish, the full pasuk is v'im gaol yigal ish mima asro chamishi soyo seif olav. The pasuk says that if a person is going to redeem the meiser onto a coin, he has to add a fifth. Ish amarachmana v'lo isha. So again, what's our Mishnah discussing? This machlokes about the Mishnah about whether or not a woman adds a chomesh. What is the case? 6 lines down, the Gemara says elalav ki haygavna. The case must be ta'akne lo acher mana. An outside person gave her a mana. But Amar la, and they said to her, so the money is not hers, and they say to her, what I want you to do with this money is to be poda the meiser. And says the Gemara that this brisa that we just saw is ve'ipcha sham'ana lehu. We heard the opposite of their shitas. What is the opposite of their shitas? In our Mishnah on Chav Beis Amud Aleph, Rav Meir was of the opinion that an Eved Kenani can only go free with kesef al yedei acherim. Over here, Rav Meir seems to say the exact opposite, and so do the Rabbanon. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, third of the way down on Chav Daled Amud Aleph, Epoch, we should switch the shitas. This brisa over here is incorrect. Which one's incorrect, actually? Epoch? It's got it. Which one is Epoch? Which shitas is switched? Does anybody know? It's got to be the brisa. My assumption is that it's the brisa. Either way, Abaye says, Epoch, we should switch the shitas to make sure that they align. Rava Amar la'olam lo tepoch. And by the way, I've highlighted this a number of times already. Abaye and Rava have different problem-solving approaches. Abaye is ready to change a brisa on a dime. Rava says, wait, the text is chashuv. Let's see if we can work with the text. These are different approaches, right? So it's very interesting because you can pick up themes and how people end. We've seen a lot of Shas, almost half. Rosh Hashem will be there on Som Gedalia. So Rava says, no, keep the text as it is. Lo'olam lo tepuch. And the case of Meiser is different. We're dealing with Meiser that came from the woman's house, meaning from her father's house. She got it as a Yerusha. Rav Meir L'taime, and this is a lamdasha idea. Rav Meir L'taime, he says to Amar, Meiser mamon hektishu velo kanile bal. Meiser is actually mamon hektish. It's never owned by the Baal, ever. he doesn't own it ever. So when the wife, if you look back in the Mishnah on the second line, Mishum Rebbe Lazar, Isha Poda Meiser Sheni Below Chomesh. Why? Because it was never the husband's. The money came from the outside. That was Arukimta. The money came from the outside. And therefore, in such a case, the husband never had a hand in it. No need to be Poda. Isha Amar Rachmana Below Isha. Perfect. They hold Mamon Hedjo too. Mamon, it does belong to people. The Kani Leibal, the husband does hold on to it. Hilkach, she does have to hold on to the Chomesh. She does have to pay the Chomesh. That solves for our stira between our Mishnah and the Brisa about Eini Shapoda Meiser Sheni. The Gemara says that the two dots about 8 lines before the bottom of the page, 2/3 of the way down, Tana Yotze B'Shein Ve'ayin V'Roshe Evarim Shein and Chozer. We are well aware of this din, that by an Eved Kenani, not by an Eved Ivri, but by an Eved Kenani, if his tooth falls out, or if his eye falls out, or if the tips of any of his limbs fall off, or are cut off, if they're ones that will not grow back, then they go free. So says the Gemara, Bishlam Hashem ve'ayin ksivi. I understand how you know that by an Eved Kenani, that if their tooth falls out or if an eye falls out, I understand why they go free, because that's Mefurish Pasuk and Chumash. Ela Roshe Evarim Minalan. How do you know that if someone cuts off, let's say, from the last knuckle on someone's finger of an Eved Kenani, Minalan, he goes free? It's a pasuk in Chumash. It should be Al Yidei Habal, no? What's the pasuk? Does it say? No, I don't even think it's b'mezid. I think it just has to happen. Yeah, because the Gemara discusses a case later today where he's like a dentist, and the tooth falls out, and they're discussing whether or not. But that's rejected to say that he had to have kavana. So the chori has to do it on purpose. Well, let's ask this question in 10 minutes when we get to the middle of the sugya. So the Gemara says as follows: Bishlam Hashem. Okay, we got that. Minalan says the Gemara. How do we know Roshe Evarim? The Gemara says Dum Yedushain ve'ayin. Let's find the common denominators between Shein and Ayin. Ma Shein ve'ayin. Just like by teeth and by eyes, they're mumin shebegalui ve'einon chozrin. They're damages that people can see. You're missing a front tooth, everybody knows, and they're einon chozrin. If you lose an adult tooth, it's not coming right back in unless you go to Stein Dentistry, right? Little plug. So but they don't grow back on their own. So therefore, from there, our common denominator applies outward. Of kol mumin shebegalui ve'einon chozrin. Therefore, all of our fingertips, all of our toes, if they get cut off at work, the din is that they also go free. So the Gemara seems to have some type of tzushtel from the world of a binyanav, as it were, from the world of Shein B'ayin, to say that their common denominator is X, and therefore we apply it even to Roshe Evarim. Ve'ema says the Gemara that nehavu Shein B'ayin kishnik suvana b'ayin ke'echad. Perhaps we can argue that the cases of Shein B'ayin and Chumash are really two different psukim, and whenever we have two different psukim speaking about one idea, perhaps we should argue that because Shein V'ayin are not only written in one pasuk, but they're written separately, therefore we should say they're Shnei Ksuvin Abayin Ke'echad, and therefore the only things that actually enable an Eved Kenani to leave his post is if his tooth falls out or the eye, but nothing else, not Rosh Evarim. L'may nafkamina, again, the fingers. Says the Gemara, no, that's not correct. Tzricha. We needed the two psukim of Shein B'ayin. They're not teaching the same exact din. We needed the Torah to be explicit about both of them for the following reason. Because of Rachmana Shein, had the Torah only written about a tooth, Havamina, I might have thought, turning to the top of Chav Daled Amud Aleph, that afilu Shein Dechalav, a tooth of milk. What's a tooth of milk? Rashi says, Shein Dechalav, Shein Sheyanakba, a tooth that is nursed from, namely, a baby's tooth. We know that children lose teeth for many, many years. I think every one of my kids has had some of their baby teeth pulled. We hold on to them for a long time. So the Gemara says that maybe we would have thought that wouldn't count. Because of Rachmana Ayin, to teach us that no, even that would count. Because of Rachmana Ayin, Habamina Ama Ayin Sheniv Ra'imo, the eye was from birth, that's in utero, the baby has an eye. Av kol sheniv ra'imo, av al shein lo. Perhaps we'd say that a tooth is not like that because our adult teeth, while maybe they exist in minor form when we're babies, what we now know from x-rays is that there are some small, whatever, is a little How big is a baby? They're 6 pounds, they're tiny. But still, we would have thought that perhaps the rule of Shein V'ayin is different, and therefore, says the Gemara Tzricha, we needed the separate psukim of Shein V'ayin, and therefore we cannot say it's Shnei Ksuvin Habayin Ke'echad and Ein Malamdin, and therefore we would therefore assume that Shein, Ayin, and Rosh Evarim are back on the list of things that can happen to an Eved Kanani that would free him. Says the Gemara. See, I would have been scared of this Gemara 3 days ago, but after the Daf we learned 3 days ago, I'm not scared of this Gemara. Just saying, it's all relative. Says the Gemara, Ve'ema ki yake is a klal, and shein ve'ayin is a prat, and that's only a klalu prat. And if we only have a klalu prat, that's an extremely limited form of a limud. Ein bechlal ela ma'aseh beprat. The rules only apply to that which the Torah is mefaret. Shein ve'ayin in midi acharina lo, and perhaps therefore, says the Gemara, or doesn't say the Gemara, but the Gemara implies that Rosh Evarim is not a good reason to be freed as a slave. Says the Gemara, no, you got it wrong. You got the prat, you got the klal and the prat correct, but you forgot something. Says the Gemara, lachoshi shalchanu chazar uklal. Oh, very good. And as we learned a couple of days ago, klalu pratu klal, iyatadon elakena prat, maha prat mufurish, mumen shebegali ve'enon chozrin. This is really where the Gemara was starting in this sugya, but without the language. Here we have the language of the. I use the phrase binyanab. It's really not right. It's really this. It's really klalu pradu klal. And what is the common denominator? Mahaprat mefurash mumen shebegali ve'enon chozrin. Avkol mumen shebegali ve'enon chozrin. That perhaps we should say the common denominator is like we started, that as long as it's a mumen shebegalui, it's revealed, and it's einon chozrin, it won't grow back on its own. Therefore, that's going to be the ptur to get an Eved Kanani out of his slavery. Therefore, that includes shein, ayin, and rosh evarim she'einon chozrin. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Ima haprat, we have another common denominator in regards to the prat. When within the klalu pradu klal, what do we know about the prat? It's mefurash mumen shebegalui. That it's explicit, we see it. Ubatel mi malachto, and you can't use it to work anymore. And ve'eno chozer. So perhaps we should broaden our definition of common denominators. We should broaden our common denominators to say, Avkol, anything that falls into the category of mumen shebegalui ve'eno chozer ubatel mi malachto. And if that's true, Allah Matanya, why do we have a din of talash bezekano? If a master pulls on the beard of his slave, the dildel bo etzem, and he makes a bone hang. This is code word for dislocating a bone. You could dislocate someone's jaw. That's got to be a painful one. And that's a pretty hard beard pull. That's That's pretty rough. I dislocated my shoulder once. It was very unpleasant. Can't imagine the jaw. You can't even move your mouth. So the Gemara says that Eved Yotze bo lecherus. So says the Gemara, maybe we should lechoshia shalchenu ribuyahu. The Gemara says, actually, your question is so good that it's really not klalu pradu klal. It's really a ribuya. Ribuya umiuta. Says the Gemara, huvi'i ribuyahu. If in fact it's a ribuy, like we saw a couple of blot ago, whereas klalu pradu klal is a medium type of inclusion where we have some things that are in and some things that are out. Basically, we look at the pratim in the klalu pradu klal and we build principles based on the prat, as we did above, where we said that they're mumen shebegalui ve'enon chozer. Perhaps by a ribui will be even more broad. V'ribuyahu afilu iko al yado v'tzimtza v'sofo lachzor nami. If we say ribuya, then really any type of injury similar to shein v'ayin should be included, even more broad than roshe evarim. For example, any injury that even down the road might heal himself. We might have thought that that also would have been included. And if that's true, a third of the way down, and we'll be heading to the very top of Chaf Hey Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, Allah Matanya, why then do we have a brayso of Hiko al Yado v'tzimtza v'sofo chozer v'sofo lachzor ein eved yotze ba lecherus? So the Gemara says, but the brayso doesn't say like that. The brayso doesn't say like the ribui type of approach. Because if that were to be the case, why would it say that if the hand was injured temporarily that he would not be yotze lecherus? He should be yotze lecherus because it's a ribui of ribuye umiute, which is broader than klalu pradu klal. Says the Gemara, you're right, but even by ribuye umiute, there are things that have to be excluded. Ribuye umiute, that's the name of the limud. So what's that? Shein v'ayin, my ahani like. According to your approach, what injury doesn't free the guy, there has to be something. Elamai, it must be this case of hikahu al yodav simsa v'sofa lachzor. In such a case, ein eved yotzeba. All right, so that's how the Gemara explains this sugya, and it seems to be a little hard to navigate the Shak Levitaria, but it seems from the Gemara that we have the Ribui case, and really any injury is going to free an Eved, with the exception of this one case of Hiko al Yado, that if a person has a hand that's out of commission for a temporary amount of time. The Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan, a third of the way down, Bechulam, Eved Yotze Bahem Lecherus, V'tzarech get Shichur, Divrei Reb Shimon. He says that even if you're going to go free, you still need to get shichur. Meaning, we're used to hearing in the Balabatish sense, we hear, oh, his eye fell out, he goes free. Yes, but there's a process. He has to have a get. He has to have a star shichur. That's Shitas Reb Shimon. Rav Meir Omer, I disagree. Eino tzarech, and now we're going to see a flurry of opinions. Does he need a get when he's injured? Yes or no? Rabbi Lazar Omer tzarech, Rabbi Tarfon Omer Eino tzarech, Rabbi Kiva Omer tzarech, and Hamachri and Lifnei Chachamim, those who pass in shilas in front of the Chachamim, Omer near and Divi Rabbi Tarfon b'shein ve'ayin. What did Rabbi Tarfon hold? Eino tzarech. He says that really we don't need a star shichur, that once you get hurt, you can go free. She haTorah zachsalo, that he just goes free. V'divi Rabbi Akiva, we paskin like Rabbi Akiva l'chumra, that you do need a star shichur. B'sha'ar evarim. Wow, a distinction. If you get hurt with shein ve'ayin, then you don't need a star shichur, psukim and chumash. But if you get injured by one of the ribuya type of things, which is rosh evarim, or basically any other injury, then you actually need to have a star shichur. Why? Hoel v'knas chachamim. So this is a very odd line in the Gemara. What do you mean it's a knas chachamim? The chachamim are not the ones who gave the knas. We just said it's a drasha from the Torah. So the Gemara calls it out. Knasu? What are you talking about? Were you a part of Daf Yomi for the last 6 minutes? We just spent time trying to figure out, was it klalu prat? Was it klalu pradu klal? Was it ribuye umiute? But one thing is for sure, it's not a knas derabanan that he goes free. That's for sure. So the Gemara says you're 100% right. Elohoel umidrish chachamimhu. Oh, wow. Wow. Because it's not explicit in Chumash, because it's only a medrash chachamim, it's a drasha, it's a diuk from the psukim, or I should say better, it's klalu pradu klal or ribuye miute. Therefore, in such a case, the rules are different. Do you know where we see this? By Yeharig Val Yavor. By Yeharig Val Yavor, we learn this Gemara Maseches Sota. The Gemara says by Yeharig Val Yavor, the major three that we all know of, idol worship, idolatry, and murder. None of those are allowed. And the Balei Tosfos in Sota, I think it's like Daf Tes or Daf Yud, writes where it says Noach la'adam, to jump into a kibshana eish and to embarrass someone in public. Tosfos there says this idea that really it is Yeharig Val Yavor. Why isn't it included in the list of the three? Because it's not Mefurish B'Torah. So a similar idea over here, where the drasha is not as strong. It's not quite as strong as the pasuk of, doesn't mean it's not Deoraisa. It's Deoraisa. But there are gradations in regards to how we execute the star shichur in such a case. When it's shein v'ayin, no star shichur, psukim and chumash, everybody knows what happened. But when it's a medrash chachamim, there we're concerned that people are not talmidei chachamim, and we're afraid they're going to make a mistake. Therefore, we require a star shichur. Now, question is such an odd question. It's so odd. First of all, the answer rejects the question so strongly that it makes the question unreasonable. What is this little mark here I have? Knas chachamim. The Havamin is very, very odd. The language should have been the knas chachamim hu. It says that. Oh, so that means it was a mistake in language. It should be medrash chachamim. Either way, the Havamin of this Gemara is inexplicable. No, David?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Sort of works on that point. Like many good, what's this lesson?
It's most of Shas is like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, just to be clear, and I don't know what Tosfos' answer is, but we're not saying that he's not putter.
Yeah, no,
he's putter. We just need to add a layer of a star shichror. Maybe that's what the Gemara means, is that the star shichror is the knas d'Rabbanan. Oh, really?
really you should just go, but there are a bundle in the sock and you do it in, I didn't finish yet,
Yeah.
because otherwise. Today I knock your whatever off, and then
You cut the end of my finger off,
and
right?
then I meet you next week in the shuk, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're mine. You know, and you're not bleeding anymore or whatever, so you have to get shiur, come inside, you have to get shiur, then I can't act that way.
But by Shein V'ayin, because it's explicit in Chumash, everybody knows.
Yes, everybody knows.
So then, according to this approach, it is a Knas D'Rabbanan in regards to the Shtar Shichur piece. Correct. Out of concern that because it's Medrash.
If it's something which is nigger, then I'm not going to that either. In other words,
Correct.
Just that you meet them in the sugar with their
Right.
not leading them.
But Stan, the Shein V'ayin are iconic to an Eved.
Right.
An Eved
Yeah,
Kanani going free.
First thing I'm gonna see you in the street is if you're missing an eye or two.
Right. Super.
Other parts might be covered.
Right.
But those are unlikely.
So odd that we care what other people can see. Meaning
Well,
the Torah
it's
gave
more for
examples
the
of
protection of the Eved.
what?
It's more for the protection of the Eved. Again, I knock
No,
out.
but it's a chumrah for the Eved too, because let's say I don't know, a covered body part is severed. He wouldn't go
Right, so
free.
Yeah.
It's a very strict line on the Eved. It's very odd.
No, he still goes free.
Mechatesi?
Require again.
Mechatesi, no. No, I'm saying if it's something that's not an aver that's begalu.
Yeah.
So the tzara shavish and the klalu pradu klal and the ribuya miute is that it has to be an aver that is visible. I should say that's a klalu pradu klal. It's not the ribuya miute. Because in the case of klalu pradu klal, it had to be an aver megula, fingers and toes. Or let's say b'darenu ata, some people walk around without shoes on. I should say everyone in the airport wears flip-flops, so maybe that's not much of a raya, but maybe in a culture where everybody wears shoes, we'd say if somebody cut off your pinky toe, maybe you wouldn't go free. That's possible. I don't know. I'm just okay. Very, very interesting Gemara. All right, let's get into the lumdus of this machlokes. We had said a third of the way down on Chav Daled and Beis that Reb Shimon was of the opinion that it needed shtar shichur, and Reb Meir was not. Says the Gemara halfway down on Chav Daled and Beis. I don't understand. My time of the Reb Shimon. Why is it that Reb Shimon says we need a shtar shichur? The Gemara says Yalif shiluach miisha ma'isha b'shtar haf eved nami b'shtar. What does this have to do with anything? Why did? We're saying this is not a distinction of Shein V'ayin, by the way. We're saying that according to Reb Shimon, Reb Shimon in a vacuum. Reb Shimon in a vacuum doesn't make a distinction between Shein V'ayin on the one side and the Medrash Chachamim. That's a blend of how we paskin. That's what the Gemara says. Shahor l'fnei Chachamim, X is X and Y is Y. But here, according to Reb Shimon, he says across the boards, and seemingly his is Mida Oraisa. According to our discussions earlier, Rabbi Machlokas Tanaim, that according to Reb Shimon, we have a din de Oraisa that the shtar shichur has to be given. But according to the psak of the Gemara that we had said earlier, and Tosfos, according to that Tana, the shtar shichur is only D'Rabbanan. That would be a Machlokas Tanaim l'chora. The Rav Meir, what does he say? Ikasa chofshi livesof. The pasuk says the word chofshi. It was written at the end. Kidika Amers, I would agree. Hashta dechsiv lachofshi yishalchenu chofshi is first. Havale chofshi meikara, based on the seder hadvarim, because the word chofshi comes first. Therefore, he doesn't need a get at all. Fascinating. Tana Rabbanan, two braysos, and then we're going to ask why we need both of them. Tana Rabbanan hikahu al eino usma'a al ozno v'charsha. If you hit a person on the eye and he gets blinded, on his ear and he becomes deaf, eved yotze bahen lecherus. The din is that he goes free. Now, what if I didn't hit him on the ear, and what if I didn't hit him on the eye? By the way, the eye is a new addition to our conversation. We haven't been discussing that, right? Shein V'ayin. Here we're talking about an ear. Kineged eno. What if I don't hit him on the ear? What if he's lying down in his bed and I take a baseball bat and I slam it down on the night table? I don't hit him on the ear. I'm near his ear. Kineged eno, near his eye. Ve'eno, right? I punch him in the face, but not his eye. Kineged ozno ve'eno shamea, and now he can't hear. Ein ha'eved yotze bohen lecherus. So it has to be direct as opposed to indirect. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Shemin LeRav Ashi, Lememra dekala lav klumhu. Are you trying to tell me that if I make a sound, that sound has no halachic ramifications? V'hatani Rami Bar Yecheskel Tarnagol shehoshit rosho le'avir kli zechuchis. Let's say that there's a chicken, an animal who gets his head stuck in a glass jar, v'takabo, and the animal screeches at the loudest of sounds, and the pitch of his voice, v'shavro, he breaks the glass jar. Says the Gemara, mishalem nezek shalem. The owner of that tarnagol has to pay nezek shalem for the glass. But he didn't use his beak to break it. He just hit a pitch, and the pitch broke it. So we therefore see from over here that kol is a thing. So why then, if I make a sound next to someone's ear and it leads to him becoming deaf, why would he not go pater if he's my Eved Kanani? And more, V'amar Rav Yosef, Amar Bei Rav, Sus Shetzanaf, if you have a horse that makes his sound, V'chamor Shenier, and a donkey makes its sound, V'shivru Kalim, and it breaks Kalim, V'soch Habayis, Mishalman Chatzi Nezek, they pay Chatzi Nezek. So says the Gemara, it must be that you're wrong. It must be that kol is an issue. So why then did you say, if I make a sound near the Eved Kanani's ear, and he does go deaf, that I'm not going to have to free him? Says the Gemara, 3/4 of the way down, Amar Lei, shiny of Adam. This is a fascinating Gemara. People are different. Why? To Kevan de Bardashu, Ihu Mivis Nafshe. Since he's a Bardas, he should be able to control himself, to control his body's reaction. Meaning, you got to have some grit. Just because somebody bangs on the table, you shouldn't have gone deaf. You should have some self-control over the matter. Just telling you, I don't write the Gemara, I just read it. I'm just telling you what the Gemara says. Says Rashi, shiny Adam, halfway down. Shiny Adam debar dasu. Hi Nizak. He got scared, and he only got scared because he got scared. Yeah, so the Gemara's assumption is that it was fear. What?
She said, toughen up, buttercup.
That's exactly right. Where's your grit? Because your psychology is so fragile that you were shocked and your body reacted. Grow up. Grow up.
That's not really a shot in understanding.
The question assumed, like you're saying, that there was a medical issue that happened. Right, yes. The Gemara's answer is saying, no, there isn't. He banged on the table. You're not wired to not be shocked, so you were shocked. That's your fault.
The pitch is going to break the glass. That's just...
Over here, we're under the assumption that the sound will not break your eardrum.
Ask the glass to be a little more careful with itself.
But you can have a person whose constitution is such that he never gets scared. Ad kedei kach, that the Eved Kanani doesn't go free.
I understand.
It's crazy.
That sounds like a Hasidic Shemaisa, that if you had better Amunah and a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that wouldn't have happened to you.
And now what you see is that having Amunah and a Kadosh Baruch Hu is not a Hasidic Shemaisa. It's actually Lemaisa. It's a true deal. Rabbi Yaakov, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a murder.
No. It's fear. It was a shock factor, basically, because you're shocked, therefore your system
and there's no nezek. That's not considered a nezek at all.
We'll see soon that you're chai b'dinei shamayim, but not b'dinei adam.
And somebody would evaluate, like, it sounds like if it was like really loud and like physically would make them go deaf.
That's a diuk from the Gemara, right? That's not explicit in the Gemara. So let's say somebody played a volume in your ear that was so loud that no eardrum, or that the average eardrum would pierce.
120 decibels. Yeah.
Whatever it is. So then you're done. Then of course you'd be chayav. That ever would then go free. But the way the Gemara is framing it out right now is that if it isn't really a direct medical cause, but instead that due to shock, therefore, that's your fault. It's unbelievable.
It's basically calling it a grumma.
It's not a grumma, it's a zero. It's not grumma ben Ezekin Potter. Grumma ben Ezekin Potter is an idea throughout Shas. If I push a cart and jewel into the thing and then the wind takes it, that's even lower than grumma ben Ezekin. Whatever. This is not that. This is saying that your constitution is weak. It's incredible.
He's not really deaf.
Or that he's only deaf due to shock, which seems to be what Rashi's saying. He's deaf.
I mean, there used to be that thing.
I don't know. I'm just telling you what Rashi says.
I don't know what it's called now, but there actually used to be a medical condition called hysterical blindness. And it was all based off of.
Psychology.
A mental state.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's what it's referring to.
I don't know. Kiddushin, we actually have a brisa that speaks about this. Check this out. We're again 3/4 of the way down. Hamavis es chavero, pater midine adam chai bedine shamayim. A person who scares his friend, and the friend then gets injured, while down here on earth he is pater midine shamayim, midine adam. He's no bezdin can say you're chayav to pay X, but you're still a pretty bad guy. Ketzad, taka beozno.
You,
What?
you.
Yeah. Taka beozno v'charsho pater. Achzo v'taka beozno v'charsho chai. If you make a loud sound in his ear and he becomes deaf, you're pater. If you grab the lobe of his ear and scream in his ear or do whatever sound you're going to do and he becomes deaf, then you're chayav. It's all about the touching here. That would be the nafkamina between pater and not pater. You're still no tzaddik. You're still going to have dinim up in Shamayim, but l'maisa and the bezdin, they can't hold you accountable. That is how the Gemara concludes that you need to have a stronger constitution.
So if you put you put headphones on somebody and blast it, not a problem, right? But you didn't do it.
Well, that's the same.
That's already middle of the road because there's something contacting his head. I don't know if it's if you put the headphones on, you're held accountable. You'd be in the latter category of the brisa and you'd be chayav. But if in the movies when they, not that we watch movies, but in the movies when they torture people and they put on the heavy metal Black Sabbath at the loudest possible sounds for 20, that's pater midine adam chayav din shamayim.
Yes, but is it live or is it memorized?
We already broke the glass, like. Showing your age.
Tana Rabbanan, I don't even know. I literally don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah, literally.
You gotta look it up.
No, I will absolutely not look it up. No.
Then ask your brother.
That's fair. That's fair. Tana Rabbanan, hikahu al eino v'kihasa. If a person hits a person and his vision got poor, not blind, just poor, al shino v'nodada, and his tooth became loose. Im yachol lihishtamesh bahen achshav. If it's still usable in its diminished state, ein eved yotze bahen lecherus. Then that's still not all. You haven't reached the threshold of freeing the eved. You've diminished the strength of their tooth and of their ear and of their eye, but not enough. Eved yotze bahen lecherus. Tanya idach, another brisa that's similar, but now we have to pay attention because these two brises kind of overlap a little. Haresha eno kehoya. His eye was already weak, and you brought him from 50% usma'a, or shino neduda, he had a loose tooth, and you made it fall out. So says the Gemara. If it was usable in its starting state of 50% quality, a loose eye, a loose tooth, whatever. So then the Gemara says, if it was usable and you removed its use, so then he goes free. V'im lav, first of the middle width lines, 10 lines from the bottom. V'im lav, ein eved yotze behen lecherus. So these two cases, let's just get them clear. You are at 100% capacity as an eved kanani, and your master reduces you to 50 by injuring you. Case one. And we said, if it's still functional, you don't go free. If it's not functional, you don't. Case two is you're starting at 50% and your eved brings you down to 0. If when you were starting, you were usable, and now he makes you 0, you go free. And if not, not. So these two cases seem to be very similar halachos. So the Gemara says, "V'tzricha," we need both cases. The Yashmin and Kamaisa, where I take you, where I'm the master and you're the Eved Kanani, and I take your 100% perfect ears and I reduce them to 50. So then, Mishum Dmeikara Nahora Baria, there you were perfectly healthy. V'hashta Nahora Krisha, and now you can see, but you're reduced. So there we might have said that that's where we would apply these halachos of al-hacha. In the latter case, where you go from 50% to 0, the meikara nami nehora krisha emalo, the same rules wouldn't apply. So therefore, we need the second brisa. V'yashminan ha. If we only had the second brisa, where you started at 50%, and I, the master, would bring you down to 0, mishum desamya legamre, because I took you from 50% to 0. There's no possibility of functioning at that level. Aval hasam, in the first case where I took you from 100% to 50, the low samya l'gamre emalo. Therefore, it's richa. We need both cases. So it's a question of functionality. If I take you from 100% to 50 and you're still functional, you don't go free. If I take you from 50% and that 50% you couldn't even chew on that side of your mouth, and then I pull that tooth, if the tooth is, listen, this is important. If the tooth is not useful in its current state, and then you pull it, he doesn't go free. He only goes free if it was useful and you remove it. Therefore, when we talk about shein v'ayin, we're talking about removing usability. We're not just talking about removing a tooth in a vacuum. It has to be reducing usability to zero. It was functional and now it's not. Or it was functional and now it's less. So in those cases, that's when it's removed. We need both of those cases.
Somebody now was able to drive before, he damages his eye, so he's no longer driving, the eye still needs to go outside the drive. There's some level of reduction of drug use.
Are you specifying this activity as opposed to another activity?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, splitting hairs.
Driving
The
out-
chorah, he'd go free.
Even though he can still use his eye, just not for driving, he's not good enough to drive. But he should be able to. Right?
I'm guessing. You need Rishonim for these fine-tuned cases. I'm sure the Rishonim discussed these cases.
An activity which is permanently damaged.
Gone.
It's free.
Turning 40 does the same thing, by the way. Very hard to drive at night at a certain age, you know. But if you have someone who can no longer drive at night because of your injury that you caused them and they're your Eved Kanani, is it, I'll ask your question in the way of the Rishonim, is it losing all functionality or some functionality? Right.
In other words,
I'm just guessing that even if you lose some, because the Gemara's phraseology is if on the negative end, that if you can't set someone free if you haven't removed their functionality. You have here, you did a little, you removed something.
Right.
By the way, the tooth that's there, maybe you can't chew steak on it, but you can chew grits on it. So you're still usable. It's better than having a hole in your mouth.
Right.
So I presume that you're right. Tanu Rabbanon, 8 lines from the bottom, heading to the end of the day, the Gemara says, Haresha Haya Rabo Rofe. Let's say that I'm a doctor and you're my Eved Kanani. V'amar lo likho lo eino. I say, I want you to please, you say to me, please put some salve in my eye. I have a disease, and by accident I put in bleach usama and I blinded you. Or lachtor lo shino, I want you to clean out my teeth. I have something stuck in my teeth, and I'm a dentist, and behipila. Then sichek be'adon v'yotza l'cheres. He gets to laugh at his master and walk out. All right, so obviously a little tongue in cheek, but the point is that like, see you later. Thanks for the free dental work. I'm out of here. Rashbag argues. Rashbag Gomer no v'shichasa achi iskavein l'shachasa has to be intent to destroy. So this is machlokas tanaim. I was hinting to this earlier that when we are talking about damages done by a rav to an Eved Kanani, according to the Tanakama, even if it's accidental, you still go free. But according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, it has to be intentional. The Gemara says v'Rabbanon, according to the rabbis who say that it doesn't have to be intentional, that even if he was just cleaning his tooth and one of the teeth just fell out, hi v'shichasa, my avdilay. What do they do with the word v'shichasa? The Rashbag learned the pasuk v'shichasa that taught us that has to be intentional. What does the Tanakama do? The Gemara says mibai lehu, they need it lichadetanya. Rabbi Lazar Omer, arishahoshid yadu lemei shivchasa. Let's say that a man is delivering a baby. And in the process of delivering a baby, and in the process, he was pulling the baby out, and just the placement of his hands as he was pulling the baby out blinded the fetus. Says the Gemara Pater, my taima to Amar Kra v'shichasa ad sheyechavein l'shachasa. The word v'shichasa was not talking about Eved Kanani at all. It was talking about a din of damaging a fetus in utero during birth. He inserted the hands in the way to capture the baby and blinded the baby. That's what the word v'shichasa means. V'idach. What then would Rashbag say? Mi v'shachas, mi v'shiches, and shichasa. We have an extra letter. The extra letter hey is where Rashbag learns this from. Nafka, that's where he learns from. V'idach, what would the Rabbanan say? Shiches, shichasa, that extra letter, lo darish. One last case. Amar of Sheshas. Haresha haisa eno simuya. Let's say that a man had his eye in his head, but he was completely blind. And then the master took out his eye, he removed his eye, enucleation, total removal. So then Eved Yotze Behen Cheres. Why? No functionality has been removed. He was blind before and he's blind after. Okay, who cares? His eyes didn't work. So who cares if you take out his eye? Why do you gotta ask ridiculous questions? This is Criminal Minds. This is we're watching a TV show of a masochistic, dangerous human being.
1,500-year-old TV show, just go.
Seriously, he has a jar of eyeballs in his basement. Yeah, whatever. You got it.
Bram Stoker was a digital.
Have you ever heard of a television? Come on.
I live it.
I'll ask my older brother.
You went to Hello Tower.
I certainly did. So says the Gemara, why does this work? My timer. Why is it that he would go free? We just learned that the threshold of an Eved going free is that he loses functionality. He didn't lose functionality. Says the Gemara, an added layer, mechusar everhu. The Tanatuna, we have this idea already. The Gemara says, Tamos v'zachrus, the fact that an animal is tam and the fact that an animal is male, that's only important bibehema. Vein tamas v'zachrus be'ofos. This doesn't apply to birds. Yachol yivesha gapa nikta ragba nechta ta'ena. Maybe we would have thought that a bird is still kosher if its wings were dried out, or if its leg work was cut off, or if its eye fell out. Tamalam min ha'ofa lo kolov. So we see this idea as well that mechusar aver by an animal and therefore, of course, by people will be valuable. Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav Hayasalo Yeseres. Rashi, etzba yisera. You have a sixth finger. I actually know one of my wife's classmates has 6 toes in order. She has a 6th toe. So the Gemara says, and v'chatcha, what if you cut off the extra toe? You're the Rav, and you don't like the extra toe. The shoes don't fit, so you cut off the extra toe. Says the Gemara, Eved yotze behen l'cherus, and the Gemara qualifies. Amar Rav Huna, v'hu shenisperes al gav hayad. It has to be that when you're counting, it is the next one. Can't be like sticking out of your wrist. It's got to be in the right place, right? So if you have your 6th finger that looks kind of like this and it's in the right place, that counts. If it's sticking out of the side of your face, down your wrist, that doesn't count. They have to be in order. We'll stop right here. Mir Hashem, tomorrow we'll pick up with Daf Chav Hey. Wishing you all a beautiful night.